My name is Ann Saldivar. I work at Texas Global here at UT Austin and I support education abroad and also serve as the Peace Corps recruiter here on campus. And I'm very excited to join Sophia today. She's a currently serving volunteer in Paraguay, and I will let you introduce yourself. If you want to just tell us what you studied here, when you graduated, where you are now.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Anne, and anyone that's watching this video later on. My name is Sophia Guirola. I graduated from UT Austin in May 2020. So I was kind of one of the lucky few to only have her last semester in college impacted by the pandemic. Um, I studied international relations and sustainability studies at UT in the College of Liberal Arts. I was also in the honors program in LAH and didn't really have Peace Corps on my radar until my senior year. So in fall 2019 is when I started the application process for Peace Corps. And it is kind of a long application process, but you learn a lot about yourself and you're really intentional throughout the whole process because this 2 years abroad and in service is not really a decision to be taken lightly. So there's kind of a lot of checks along the way to make sure that you actually want to be doing this. Um, I'll introduce my Peace Corps service as well. Apologies for the train in the background if you can hear it.
No
Okay.
worries, you're good.
I have been serving for the past 2 years as an environmental education and conservation volunteer in Paraguay or Paraguay. Um, and I actually just wrapped up last week my 2 years in my post. So in my one rural village, wrapped up those 2 years. I'm here.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm here in Texas for vacation, and then I actually go back on January 4th to continue my extension. So I'm staying almost 6 months longer, working with a local sustainable development organization. So kind of transitioning away from like the regular Peace Corps life and into something a little more structured and or with a different organization as well. I'm almost like being lent out like a consultant to this local organization. So there's lots
Oh,
of
that's so cool.
opportunities, and service can look like a lot of different things, as I'm sure you know because you're also an RPCV
I am, yeah. I served in Jordan
in
in
Jordan.
2010. I wanted to ask, so
Yes.
how did you hear about Peace Corps? Yeah, how did you hear about it? What made you interested in learning more and applying?
I actually I think we may have had one Peace Corps recruiter come to one of my classes at some point during my UT experience, but it didn't really click for me back then. I'm trying to remember when I grew up overseas. I grew up in El Salvador in Central America, and we had a Peace Corps volunteer at my school who was like a volunteer coordinator. So she would get I went to an international school, but she would get us students connected with service opportunities. And I just thought that was really cool. Like, what is this American doing here? She's so young and she has this cool experience, but I think that piqued my interest at first. And then being, yeah, at UT in college and studying international relations and seeing Peace Corps as one of the agents of uh, kind of unofficial international diplomacy, but also intercultural exchange. I thought that was really cool. And then I've known that I've wanted to work in development, in international development, specifically sustainable development. And I figured I really have no business working in underdeveloped, poor countries. that are not my own country unless I can experience and see and witness more closely and firsthand what different types of lives look like, and what solutions on the ground look like as well. So I definitely wanted Peace Corps to be kind of that bridging experience between just kind of studying the books in college and working with local organizations in Austin, but not really having that global or my area of focus is Latin America. So not having that Latin American focus in undergrad necessarily was like, okay, I need that bridging experience between just the theory that we studied in college and actually working with people closely and with several different organizations at once. And Peace Corps offered that. So that's why I
Awesome.
pursued it.
So how do you feel like, or how do you feel like if you do that, I'm assuming that Peace Corps supported you, and do you feel like you're really partnering with your community? And I guess kind of a follow-up question, people are always curious about, um, training and like, I guess for the first part, do you feel like you're really working with your community?
Um, Fantastic questions. I think I am, or was, since I just wrapped up with my one community. But I think what makes Peace Corps really, really special and what drew me to it is that it's iterative and it's long term. So we're not just sending people for a few weeks or a few months or you know, to do something, do a specific project, and then leave, right? We're there for 2 years, and we're really, what we like to say, integrating into the community. So you're establishing these deep relationships with people, and it really depends on the volunteer as well as the community. There's a lot of variety
Mhm.
in what service looks like. But for me personally, I'll just share some of my story. Um, I really felt welcomed into the community. It was a rural community on the shores of the Paraná River. I stepped out of my house and like 2 blocks away, I could see the river. And across the river is Argentina. So I joked that I could like wave to Argentina when I would go on a walk with my dog. Um, so that's where I was, and I worked closely with the local high school, uh, and specifically with friends that I made in the high school, teachers. You you can't really come in as a foreigner and like expect everyone to be gung ho about working with you. And we also have, different working styles, and we value different things when it comes to professionalism and stuff like that. We just see things differently, right? Um, so it's really interesting to explore that uh, what those differences are and how we can overcome them or leverage them to collaborate on projects. So I was working with, like I mentioned, the local high school with the science teacher and the art teacher because those are my favorite subjects, and I'm an environmental conservation volunteer. So I kind of figured out ways that the three of us, collaborate and do interdisciplinary projects with the students, including um, 2 years in a row of like a sustainable permaculture garden, which was
Cool.
really fun. And we sprinkled in public speaking workshops, leadership, teamwork workshops, and also recycled materials art to use in the garden. So I don't think, circling back to your original question of like, do I feel like I've actually been able to work with the community? Um, yes, very much so, but also it really depends on your expectations as a volunteer. If you are trying to come into your community and be like, I'm going to solve all these problems and I have the knowledge and the skills to get stuff done, you're going to be very disappointed in my
Right.
experience. I think I approached my service with a deep level of humility. And that
Mhm.
was what helped me actually make friendships and have cool projects that I'm proud of, that I maybe led, but I didn't pull out of my brain myself. It came through a process of so many conversations, a lot of changes in plans, a lot of unexpected things, but over time building it with the people that I was working with. It has to be collaborative. Um, so yes, long answer. Yes.
No, I think that's great. People want to hear the details about, how you um came in and you had to build relationships. I always tell people who are interested in Peace Corps service, like, of course, the project is important. The countries come to Peace Corps and US government saying, we'd like to collaborate on this project because they're seeking some sort of resource, right? But I think just as important, if not more important than the actual project, is the people to people diplomacy that you mentioned before. Like, I think Peace Corps is the unsung hero of diplomacy. This is how we um, create relationships. And yes, you are creating innovative solutions to problems in the community, but you would not be able to do that without building relationships. So if you can come with an open mind and flexibility and patience, I think that serves people really well. And it's very cool to hear your assignments and your projects that you and your community partners came up with together. They sound so cool. I'd love to, see
Thank you.
pictures and go there. It just sounds amazing.
Thank you.
I
I'll
guess,
definitely
yeah.
send you some pictures that you're welcome to use wherever you'd like. But yeah, I think you summed up what I said really nicely, and I like to hear that that's a perspective that we have generally at Peace
Mhm.
Corps. Like actual volunteers have that perspective of of humility and being honest that probably most of the benefit that's gained is for the volunteer in our personal learning experiences, and professional development and intercultural abilities, right? But we do have, I do think we have an impact on our communities that's generally positive, but we're not actually probably going to see that very much.
Right.
And that's okay. We have to be okay with that. Gosh, I was going to share
Yeah,
one.
there's so many incremental changes over
Yes.
time and
Yes.
I think applicants are looking at like the actual placement, like, do I want to do health in Africa or English and wherever? But it's important to remember the mission of Peace Corps is to create conditions of peace and friendship in the world. And so congratulations. It sounds like you've had an amazing experience there, and it's so just satisfying to see young students going out in the world. And I think a lot of what I hear from students is kind of this idea of uh, people come to me because they want to do like a service, they want to give back. People also come, kind of, especially people who are looking at like medical school or law school will say, they'll say a gap year, which I kind of think I don't know, maybe it's just me that kind of has a negative connotation because it sounds like you're not working, or maybe I'm misunderstanding that. I definitely
Right.
think you're
Gap
right that
gap year feels like
people,
a vacation almost, or like an excuse to travel, maybe.
yeah. And there's
So
nothing wrong with wanting
there
to
is nothing wrong with that.
travel, but
But that's
yeah, it's
not
definitely not a
Peace Corps.
vacation.
That's
Yeah.
not Peace Corps.
Yeah.
It's work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of inner work. It's a lot of being embarrassed. It's a lot
Hmm.
of like not knowing what's going on and then figuring it out step by step. Um, and that's amazing, but it's not for everyone.
Yeah. No,
Right?
yeah, you
Yeah.
have to definitely be comfortable being uncomfortable. And especially with, I'm not sure what sort of language skills you came with. When I went to Jordan, I didn't know the Arabic alphabet completely. So that was, and with the training, it was so intense. And with my wonderful host family, I got to the level I needed to be. But you definitely like, especially if you're learning the language, but even if just cultural norms and what's going on, you're going to
Yeah,
like have embarrassing moments and just have to be able to
100%.
laugh at yourself.
100%.
Yeah. So how did you feel about the training? What was it like for you? Were you with a host family? Did you, um, I mean, you said you grew up in El Salvador, so I'm assuming you had a fluency. Um, but yeah,
Yes.
tell us what that was like for you and then maybe for peers who were not fluent in Spanish or
For sure, for sure. Yeah, so I might be a little bit of a special case in that I've always spoken Spanish in addition to English, but we did have to learn a third language, which is Guarani, the indigenous language that's also an official language in Paraguay. So I did learn the basics and can hold my own in a conversation in
cool.
Guarani. It's not my strongest language, even after almost 2.5 years. Um, but my peers that did have to learn both Spanish and Guarani probably struggled a little or a lot more towards the beginning. But after these 2 years, the way that they're speaking Spanish is absolutely amazing. And a lot of them can also hold really strong conversations in Guarani as well. So it's really impressive. Like it's complete immersion, right?
Mhm.
That's the way to learn a new language. So what was training like? So we were still kind of riding the tailwinds. I think that's the idiom. I keep forgetting idioms now that I'm
Mhm.
back, but I think that's the idiom. That
Mhm.
we're keep we were kind of on the back end of COVID still.
Mhm.
So we came in with many, many precautions. This was in 2021,
Mhm.
in September. But then, wait, is that true? Yeah, yeah, it's true. And then so yeah, some of the cautions were a little restrictive, like we weren't able to really travel ourselves and explore the town where we were during our training. We had
Mhm.
to kind of be closed off, but now things have changed a little. But training was incredibly fast paced. It was useful. Everything was intentional. Peace Corps Paraguay staff had to figure out a nice balance between getting all the requirements from Washington into training in 12 weeks. Now training is only 10 weeks in Paraguay, so it's even faster. But the language instructors were top notch, um, really good language instructors. And I think this holds true for all posts. They're very, very good language instructors. Um, the way that we were also taught about local customs and just cultural things to keep in mind while navigating Paraguay was incredibly useful and accurate. Even after 2 years of living there, I'm like, yep, what they told us day one is absolutely true and useful. Um, you build a really strong cohort, like you find groups of friends during training where sometimes it can be a little tough because you might be placed on complete opposite ends of the country. So seeing each other might be a little more difficult after training, but you still have those bonds and you see each other grow and change throughout the experience. And that's really lovely as well. So you're not only building friendships with community members and host country nationals, but you're also building friends with peers who are going to end up who knows where in 5 years. And you're building, friendships and networks. And I think that's really spectacular.
It
I
is.
feel like I've kind of gone on a tangent here, but
No, no, no,
related to
that's
training.
no, I think that's great. And I hope that it's not too loud on my end. I tried to be muted while you were talking because we have a passport office here and it sounds like we have an unhappy baby. So hopefully that's not
Oh,
too loud.
I can't hear it at all.
Oh,
So,
okay, okay, good. No, thank you for going into that detail. And wow, that's a really fast training. But yeah, I had a similar experience in Jordan where it was mostly young, recent college grads who are teaching us, the language and cultural facilitators, and they were very energetic. We were constantly doing role plays and writing and talking, and on top of being with the host family who was told, like, do not speak English if you
Yeah.
even know any. So I think that the language learning and the cultural facilitation that happens with Peace Corps, I don't know of another way to have that sort of immersive experience. Um,
Unless
it's
you're
very unique.
studying abroad and honestly like marrying into a culture, you're probably not going to have that level of cultural understanding in 2 years. It might take you a lot longer living abroad to gain that level that we are able to get pretty quickly. And I think that sets us apart from a lot of other aid organizations too, is um, a lot of international aid and other types of organizations, religious organizations come in and just kind of quickly do things, but don't really dive into cultural understanding. And I think that
Yeah.
makes Peace Corps really special, is that we really emphasize that.
Yeah,
Um,
there's definitely a time and a place for like emergency response, like feet on the ground
oh,
immediately.
absolutely.
But yeah,
Right.
I would agree with you with development work. So after I did Peace Corps, I used a Peace Corps fellowship to do a master's. It was specifically in global health policy, but under the umbrella of
Mm,
sustainable international development, working with um colleagues who were doing that sort of work and continued to do that afterwards. So yes, and
that's
most of
so
my
wonderful.
colleagues, my classmates were international students, and that is what, you know, yeah, nobody wants some random, know-it-all from some other country dropping
Yeah.
down in and telling them what to do with their life and structures. Oh, sorry, the the lights just went off in here. That was weird. Okay. I guess it's motion censored and I was too still.
Too still.
Um, I was sitting meditation. Um, sorry, that kind of blocked my
No, you're good. You're
train of
good.
thought. So I guess kind of you talked about training and you talked about, building this relationship within your cohort, and something that people ask about, you know, and I would say especially female volunteers, I would say, just from my limited experience with the students here, is, people are curious about the
Safety.
safety and security support and like mental health support. I know for my cohort, we had a strong support system, like peer support if you were feeling stressed to talk. And then there were higher levels of support if you needed that. But how did you did you feel safe in service? And how would you answer that question?
For sure. I think that's probably well, safety was my number one concern. It was
Mhm.
the thing that was maybe holding me back from super enthusiastically pursuing Peace Corps in the first place. But um, I looked into the numbers a little more, and what I gleaned from my research as well as conversations with other female RPCVs. I say female because we know what's happening and who a target is for a specific type of
Right.
violence, most usually, right? So I, after conversations and research, I basically came to the conclusion that the risk of sexual assault, of any physical harm, is not necessarily higher than it is being a student on campus, for
Mhm.
example, on any
Yeah.
campus. But the numbers kind of matched up with UT's, rigorous reporting and so Peace Corps as well. Um, so that kind of, okay, I can do this. I can handle this, and then actually being in country, I would say yes. Like you mentioned, there's a peer support network, and then there's also like office staff support. So I'll briefly touch on both of those. Coming in as the first environment cohort since COVID, there wasn't really that peer support network. So we had to kind of build it from the ground up, but we created a diversity committee that also helps connect volunteers to support resources. So we kind of have this bridge committee between volunteers and staff, and we help talk about talk about and have action items and appeals to Washington even about specific issues that volunteers are experiencing. That's kind of the official peer support network. And then we also just have, just chat with your friends. Like all of the volunteers that I know and have had, good, deep conversations with. And now we're up to almost 200 volunteers in Paraguay.
Oh, wow.
So we've grown substantially from my cohort of 20 to now
Yeah.
there's 200. It's the biggest Peace Corps country, supposedly, right now.
Wow.
So what does that mean? That there's a lot of really awesome people that you can make friendships with, and people are always wanting to connect with each other. Like your peers are really the only people who are close enough to you, who really understand what you're going through in that moment. And we also have a lot of, as I mentioned with the diversity committee, we do a lot of training sessions about how to be a better ally, how to support your peers. So not only do we rely on like the informal just friendship level of support, but also there are trainings and other resources that we connect to. So that's the peer support. And then actual staff is, at least in my experience in Paraguay, has been absolutely stellar. I'll just quickly tell a story of something that happened to me. On a Tuesday night at like 11:45 p.m., I'm asleep in my bed. My windows are open, but I have iron bars, which is a requirement in Paraguay, on my windows. And you'll hear why it's a requirement. And a young man who was experiencing a lot of mental health issues and potentially like drug abuse issues. He tried to get into my home by pushing through the windows of my bedroom. And after like a short conversation of him still being outside, I kept asking him to leave, and he did leave. But so nothing.
Oh, I lost you.
Okay, this is why I wanted to have a plan B. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, my phone just totally shut down, but can you hear me?
Yes. Yes. I can hear you.
Okay, wonderful. Maybe a little choppy, but I reported that incident to my security team back in the capital city, and the next day they made the 7-hour drive to my site. We went together to the police station to report that incident. Um, we walked around the community, and basically they were showing the community that I am supported. And I felt that. And so many community members came up to me, and it just opened up the door to a lot of conversations of similar things that that young man had done, for example. So like having me have, you know, be able, because I don't have family ties to that young man, right? So having the ability to report his wrongdoing, really, a lot of women in my community said, "Thank you for doing that." Like I didn't feel like I could because he's my husband's cousin's son, right?
Oh, yeah.
So sometimes having a foreigner come in can help with some security stuff like that, but especially in projects. Um, a little bit of a pivot here, but
Mhm.
having like an outside perspective and someone who can see a community with fresh eyes can be potentially even one of the most inspiring
um, benefits of having a Peace Corps volunteer in that community. But yeah, I felt very supported by
Thank
staff.
you.
It was a quick response. And then Peace Corps
Mhm.
headquarters in Washington also followed up with me. So um, I like to share this story because it shows like the quick response and people take you seriously. You just have to
Yes.
advocate for yourself
Yeah,
and you'll
you
be taken.
definitely need to report. I know when I was serving and before then, people were kind of scared to report things, thinking, oh, well, I don't want to say that there was an issue and then risk being sent home. But the evolution of thought is we're not gonna just pull people out because of something unless it really is necessary, then they will. And I I was assaulted during my service, but it was not in my community. It was in the capital city. And it was, yeah, it was very shocking. And I think the response could have been better at that time. And, um, you do have to take a calculated risk walking out in the world and even much more so in a female body. That's just the fact of the situation in most places. And I will say, after I finished my master's degree, while I was looking for work in the DC area, I actually interned in the counseling and outreach unit in the medevac unit at Peace Corps headquarters. And so I was in there they have mental health counselors in each time zone, and they were talking about the evolution, like how do we define assault versus aggravated assault versus rape, and communicate what that means, and how do we properly respond to that. There was a whole evolution on really defining what those were and what the appropriate medical and mental health and safety and security response was. And I feel really, and I say my background because I'm not just like, oh, a mouthpiece for Peace Corps. Like, I literally saw that and heard that with my own eyes and ears while I was there. And it was very satisfying to see them having those conversations and putting that into policies that, and it's satisfying to hear that you felt supported in that way, because things happen and you do have to advocate for yourself. Hopefully your community supports you, and you're right, you didn't just help yourself by creating a safety net for yourself. You also secured the safety net for other women in your community who were not able, they didn't have the privilege to speak out and report in a way that you were. So thank you so much for sharing that story. That does sound scary, and I'm glad um, that you felt supported. Um,
Thank you.
oh,
I really appreciate thank you for sharing your experiences as well and for summarizing so beautifully and succinctly like the key takeaways of my story. I ended up, or I left that experience feeling stronger, um and like, wow, I can make a good decision in a difficult situation, and hopefully this doesn't happen to any other volunteers, but you will probably be put in a position where you have to make difficult decisions quickly, and that is a testament to who you are and your values and how you learn and grow. So thank you for sharing that, Anne.
yeah. So, we have a little bit of time left, and I'm just wondering, um, what, if there's anything else that you want to share, what do you, I guess, what have been the big challenges, and what do you how do you think you overcame them? And, what skills do you think served you well, or maybe you didn't have everything, but you developed some skills while you were there?
Maybe to answer the first part of the question, getting over my perfectionism, you know, going through UT, everything is really fast paced. There's so many different organizations, student orgs, and honor societies and stuff that you can be involved in. Um, and that's fantastic and it has its time and its place. But a lot of the rest of the world is not like that. Most people are not living that type of lifestyle. So, kind of connecting to more of my humanity, just being okay with being a human who makes mistakes and is not always just producing something.
Mhm.
Um, I think that's one of my key takeaways. And seeing that most people, or at least most people in Paraguay that I interacted with, um, live more closely to that type of lifestyle. Um, yeah, just connecting with humanity on a whole. Uh, Seeing how different we are, what our different values are, but in the end, and this is so cliche, but it's really true, like what connects us, like what makes us human. That's my favorite takeaway. And then I can't really remember the second part of your
I
questions.
guess just what kind of skills do you feel served you best, or maybe even a skill you learned or honed while you were there?
Sorry, let me connect my laptop real quick. Sorry,
No,
sorry.
you're good.
Okay, apologies for that.
No,
Um,
you're good.
um, let's see, some skills that I definitely built a lot stronger. Creative problem solving on the fly, especially. Um, Working with a diverse group of people and also delivering the same content. So, like, if I had a presentation in front of a specific group of people, in front of my high school students, and then being able to deliver that content for a different audience
Mhm.
quickly, like pivoting quickly. Um, Being okay with things absolutely not being okay. Like a plan completely falling apart, and then being able to gain my composure, think quickly, and be able to come up with something. Yeah, I would say those are probably the top ones that I've gained and strengthened.
I feel like sometimes people, because it's, 2 years is a long commitment, especially. So for me, I served when I didn't serve right after undergrad. I was in my early 30s. So that was different. But for students who, feel like they need to go out into the workforce or they need to go to grad school right away, sometimes they're just like, I don't know, that seems like a long time. Do you feel like, I mean, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you feel like it was worth your time? And what would you say to a friend who said, I'm interested, but I'm kind of like concerned that it's a long time?
It is a long time. It
Mhm.
is. But once you're actually in it, you're growing so much and you're learning so much that it doesn't feel like it's a long time once you're actually in it. Um, I'm gonna be honest, it's really difficult coming, having gone in as a 24-year-old, coming out as a 27-year-old and being like, oh, I'm in my late 20s now compared to when I came in. I also worked for almost 2 years right after undergrad, but because of COVID. So I would have come in as an undergrad or straight out. But I'm glad I didn't because I had 2 more years to learn more before trying to contribute in a small community. Um, I matured more before I went out to Paraguay. But yeah, it is a long time, 2 years, but also not once you're actually in it. And it's really difficult to think about the income that you're not getting by being a volunteer. Like 2 years of basically not having an income can feel pretty daunting. I think you're probably a better person to talk about like the long-term benefits of having been a volunteer. But like as I'm looking at the sunset of my service, I'm also applying to graduate programs in international public policy. So pretty
Oh,
similar to
cool.
you. Would love to chat with you later
Yeah, yeah.
personally. And exploring those benefits of the Coverdell Fellowship
Mhm.
and non-competitive eligibility, right? For after I graduate from grad school, like sure, if I get a government job, why not, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yes, it's a long time. It's not for everyone, but I absolutely do not regret it at all. I waited for it for 2 years through COVID and still committed, and I'm very thankful that I did and for all the opportunities that I've gotten because of it.
Well, I'm so grateful that you were able to still go serve after COVID, and thank you so much for your service. Obviously, I love Peace Corps. I think it's great. Also, just there's a special place in my heart, I think, for environmental conservation and sustainable practices in general. And so thank you so much for your service.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you for yours.
Yeah.
Would love to chat with you more later.
Yeah, yeah. So is there, I guess we can wrap it up here, but
Mm.
I mean, if there's any parting words you want to share, or I always tell people if you're thinking about it, just apply and then see how you feel, and
I
then you
like
can
that
do
advice.
it.
I like that advice. I think if you're curious enough about this experience, keep looking into it, keep asking people about it. If you're already connecting with Anne and the Texas Global and the Peace Corps Prep program, like you're really on the right track here to figure out if it's actually for you or not.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, just go ahead and apply, see what happens, see where you're placed. Um,
Mhm.
and this isn't military service. You're not forced to stay anywhere.
That's right.
But you might as well give something a shot. If it's calling you, just go for it, I would say.
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sophia, for joining us today. I know that you're busy and you're probably so excited to see family and friends again. So thank you for sharing the gift of time with us as
Yeah.
well. I
Well,
really
thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity. And if anyone would like to reach out and connect, you can ask Anne for my email address, or even my Paraguay phone number, and we'll connect over WhatsApp.
Awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. I hope everyone has a wonderful holiday break.
Thank you. You
Thank you,
too.
Anne.